नमस्कार। भारतीय पुनर्वास परिषद की ओर से आज की टेलीकॉन्फ्रेंस में मैं आप सभी का स्वागत करती हूँ। हम सभी अपने विचारों को व्यक्त करने के लिए संचार का उपयोग करते हैं। हम अपने भावों को व्यक्त करने के लिए भाषा का उपयोग करते हैं या कम्युनिकेशन का सहारा लेते हैं ताकि हम अपने विचारों को दूसरों को समझा सकें और दूसरों के विचारों को समझ भी सकें। लेकिन कई बार विकलांगता होने पर व्यक्ति अपने विचारों को एक्सप्रेस नहीं कर पाता या दूसरों के विचारों को समझ नहीं पाता, और ऐसा ज़्यादातर ऑटिज्म, हियरिंग इम्पेयरमेंट होने पर, मल्टीपल डिसेबिलिटी होने पर या अफेजिया हो जाता है पैरालिसिस की वजह से, या ओल्ड एज में बहुत से कारण हैं या बहुत सी कंडीशंस होती हैं जिस स्थिति में व्यक्ति एक्सप्रेशंस ठीक से नहीं कर पाता, कम्युनिकेट नहीं कर पाता। ऐसी स्थिति में क्या किया जाना चाहिए? क्या कुछ ऐसे साधन हैं या कुछ ऐसे डिवाइसेस हैं जिनका उपयोग करके कम्युनिकेशन को किया जा सकता है? इसी तरह का एक प्रयोग जो है वो ऑगमेंटेटिव एंड अल्टरनेटिव कम्युनिकेशन के माध्यम से किया जाता है। तो आज हम अपने विशेषज्ञों से जानते हैं कि अल्टरनेटिव ऑगमेंटेटिव कम्युनिकेशन क्या है, इसका प्रयोग कैसे किया जा सकता है, इंडिया में कहाँ इस तरह का प्रयोग किया जा रहा है, और किस तरह से विकलांग व्यक्ति या जिन लोगों को कम्युनिकेशन में परेशानी है वो इनका उपयोग करके अपने विचारों को कम्युनिकेट कर सकते हैं। आज इस विषय पर बातचीत करने के लिए हमारे साथ दो बहुत ही महत्वपूर्ण विशेषज्ञ मौजूद हैं। मेरे साथ हैं डॉक्टर सुधा कौल। Dr. Sudha Kaul is the founder, trustee and vice chairperson of Indian Institute of Cerebral Palsy, Kolkata. She has a PhD in augmentative and alternative communication from Manchester Metropolitan University. She has authored several books on AAC and presented many papers in national and international conferences. She is a member of several technical advisory committees of Government of India. She has been a General Council member of RCI. She is President-elect of the Indian Society of Augmentative and Alternative Communication, which is called ISAAC, and will be taking over on 1st January 07. Mrs. Kaul, आपका स्टूडियो में स्वागत है. Our other expert, Mrs. Usha Dalvi, is lecturer in Department of Speech Language Pathology of Ali Yavar Jung National Institute for Hearing Handicapped. She is working in the area of disability for last 30 years. She has contributed more than 20 papers in various journals and conferences. She has developed articulation and language tests in Hindi, Marathi and Gujarati in collaboration with RRTC Chennai, which was funded by UNICEF. She has received Teacher in Residence Award by ISAAC. आपका हमारे स्टूडियो में स्वागत है मैडम। कार्यक्रम शुरू करने से पहले मैं आपको अपने स्टूडियो के नंबर नोट करा दूं। हमारा टोल फ्री नंबर है 1800112345। STD नंबर है 01129532844, 29532845, 29536131। आप फैक्स के द्वारा भी अपने सवाल पूछ सकते हैं। हमारा फैक्स नंबर है 29536134। Now I would request Dr. Sudha Kaul to tell us the importance of communication and different modes of communication. Dr. Sudha Kaul.
Communication, as we all know, is the essence of human life, and this is what makes us different from animal beings. We use communication to get what we want. We use communication to get or tell us what we don't wish to have. Communication is always a two-way process, so we need two people, two communication partners for us to exchange our views. Communication, as you all know, is through different media, through expression of writing, speaking, drawing, all kinds of ways in which we can actually communicate. So to communicate is something that we all do quite naturally. Why is communication important for us? And how do we all communicate? Generally, we do it the way I'm doing just now. We speak, we use our speech. But at the same time, we use vocalizations, facial expressions, we use gestures, touch, and through our behavior, we use sign language and we use symbols. If you walk on the street, you will find symbols on the roadside. You will see traffic symbols, you'll see a red light that tells us to stop. So, symbolic communication, gestures, facial expression, body language is a very natural mode of communication. We all do it. And people who have communication needs, they too need to communicate the way we all do. And that is why today we are talking about AAC.
Thank you, ma'am. Mrs. Dalvi, what is augmentative alternative communication and who can be benefited from it?
Augmentative and alternative communication, as the name indicates, it is an supportive as well as an alternate method. So we can say that AAC is a term used to describe a broad range of communicative behaviors and methods which support, enhance, or increase speech attempts of the people who are unable to talk clearly or have complex communication needs. So let us see who are these group of people. Generally, people who use AAC are a heterogeneous group, and they range from very young child to adults, say with aphasia or any other neurological disorders, or who have post onset due to accidents, etc. So this, as we said, it is a wide range. It is not only restricted to one group of people.
लाइक मैम यू आर टेलिंग, ये सुधा कौल मैडम जैसे हमें बता रही थी कि जब हमें कम्युनिकेशन में कोई समस्या होती है और जनरली जो हम आम तौर पर बोलकर जो बोलचाल की भाषा में एक दूसरे को बताते हैं, सिंबल्स को इस्तेमाल करके जो बताते हैं, जब उसमें कोई भी समस्या होती है तो ऑल्टरनेटिव ऑगमेंटेटिव कम्युनिकेशन का हमें सहारा लेना पड़ता है. और ऑल्टरनेटिव ऑगमेंटेटिव कम्युनिकेशन एक वो तरीका है जिसमें हम सिंबल्स या भाषा या कुछ डिवाइसेस का इस्तेमाल करके अपने विचारों को एक्सप्रेस कर सकते हैं. और मिसेस दलवी जिस तरह से बता रही थी कि इसका उपयोग जिन लोगों को फेजिया है या किसी भी विकलांगता की वजह से या किसी वजह से वो कम्युनिकेट नहीं कर पा रहे हैं, उन लोगों को इसका फ़ायदा हो सकता है. अब मिसेस दलवी, क्या आप हमें बता सकती हैं कि ऐसे क्या वजह होती है कि वो स्पीच नहीं यूज़ कर पाते हैं?
यूजुअली स्पीच क्यों वो नहीं कर पाते हैं कि उनको शायद they may have some intellectual deficits, they may have some linguistic difficulties, they will have cognitive difficulties, they may have motor disabilities also. So this group of individuals, we say, who need AAC, they will require, say, on a temporary basis or on a permanent basis. But here the reason is that it may not be just one domain which is affected, but it is all of these domains, so it may vary, and that is why we said that this group is a heterogeneous group where they have all these difficulties. So people with this diagnosis can experience not only just severe problem, but sometimes they may have moderate problem and still others cannot understand. Severe, definitely they need some mode to express themselves, and it becomes very important that we have to give certain system to communicate.
थैंक यू मिसेस दलवी. मिसेस सुधा कौल, क्या आप हमें ये बताएंगे कि हाउ कैन वन कम्युनिकेट यूजिंग अ नॉन स्पीच मेथड लाइक AAC? किस तरीके से हम इसका इस्तेमाल करते हैं?
देखिए, जैसे मैंने पहले जिक्र किया कि हम लोग सब अलग अलग तरीके से कम्युनिकेट करते हैं. मैं बैठे अपना हाथ हिला रही हूँ, बात कर रही हूँ. इसी तरह से AAC मेथड्स में भी सब तरीके का वी नीड टू यूज़ ऑल काइंड्स ऑफ कम्युनिकेशन, जिसको हम कहते हैं मल्टी मोडल। अगर आप ये चार्ट देखिए जो हम दिखा रहे हैं आपको, एक तरफ हमने कम्युनिकेशन के बारे में लिखा है नेचुरल कम्युनिकेशन और दूसरी तरफ AAC। आप देखिए लेफ्ट हैंड साइड पे हमने कहा है वोकलाइज करके कम्युनिकेट करते हैं स्पीच के ज़रिए से, आई गेज से, फेशियल एक्सप्रेशन, पॉइंट या जेस्चर से, या बॉडी लैंग्वेज। AAC में हम वही कह रहे हैं कि मल्टी मोडल मेथड्स जो हम कम्युनिकेशन में, नेचुरल कम्युनिकेशन में करते हैं, वो हम AAC में भी करते हैं। सिर्फ इसमें एक और चीज़ हम ऐड कर रहे हैं जिसको हम कहेंगे कम्युनिकेशन एड्स, और उन कम्युनिकेशन एड्स के बारे में हम आपको आज जानकारी देंगे।
And ma'am, what is the option for those people who cannot communicate?
Option, because they may not have a natural way of communicating, as I mentioned earlier, they can be taught, or they can get the opportunity to learn how to use all the multimodal methods. Everyone can communicate. This is the basic premise on which we are working. Every single human being can communicate, irrespective of the fact that they may have a cognitive problem, they may have a physical problem, or a multiple motor problem. Therefore, we feel very strongly that because every human being can communicate, irrespective of their disability, and they need to get an opportunity to learn to communicate, they can definitely benefit by using AAC.
Mrs. Dalvi, what do you mean by communicating with symbols
Yes, when we are saying speech, again when I say Hindi, English and all, I am using those Hindi language symbols. In the same way, when we say AAC, because the child is not able to express, we have to give certain modes through which they can express themselves. So here symbols, they can range, say, from a very concrete object. Object itself can be used as a symbol, where the child, if I show the house, the child sees and says it is house, and it can range to the maximum, that is a abstract symbol, which can be like in brailles we have dots and all, that is very very abstract, the child has to learn. Or in the same way, the letters, orthographic letters, we say A, B, C, we say E, all these are abstract, we have to learn. So these symbols have to be used depending on child's ability, so that he is able to express himself.
And can you show us some examples, like everybody, we can say that how people are using this?
Yes. So we will see in the slide like how these signs and symbols, everything can be used for communicative purpose. The first slide shows that a child who is at home, because as Dr. Kaul said, communication is making active participation. So for participation, it has to be used meaningfully. It is not just giving the board and using occasionally. So the first slide indicates that how the child is using the communication board at home. The second one is the child is using in the school, because definitely when we say young child, giving them literacy skill is very very important. So literacy skill is not just reading and writing, they can do that using this communication board also. So this can be, here one young boy, he is using this at his school. There are other way of presenting also, that can be small slips, like an adult who may going out, he is not able to speak, he may write down the message. So written messages can be used, there can be coded messages. And in the next slide we can see that objects we can use, like I told you, the symbols can be very concrete. So when objects are used, again this needs to be decided, and they are very useful in the initial stages while teaching young children, as it gives them a clear understanding of the object, and it is easier for the child to learn. So here we can use or start with the actual objects or photographs, because they are still very natural. And in the next one we can see that using activity books or certain interactive material and message cards, that also helps the child to actively participate. Using this activity books or gups books, they facilitate interaction, because interaction is the main objective of communication for socialization purpose. So here these facilitate interaction, they help the child to develop turn taking, and as I said, we focus on always active participation. Okay. And like we have seen that there are both low technology and high technology systems available. Those communication boards, activity books, gups books, cards, pictures, objects, they're all low technology. Here high technology, we can see one child using the voice output communication device. So again, this is very helpful in interaction, developing literacy skill to carry out their functional communication. So it depends on for what purpose the individual requires that. For example, we have also shown in the next slide an adult using the communication board, which helps them in developing, maintaining their motivation and also the confidence, because suddenly they are not able to communicate and they have difficulties. So this providing them at the earlier stage helps them to build up confidence and maintain their motivation. It also reduces frustration in the individual and provides the immediate functional communication. We also see a autistic child in the next slide who is, with the help of certain picture, is communicating, and it has also been seen that using this communication board also has facilitated speech in many children. Here, like Dr. Kaul had said, okay, we all use multimodal communication. So here is the example where the child is using different modes of communication. Like we also use when we are communicating or studying, talking, not only the books or the material, but our body language is also there. So here in the classroom, the child is also using gestures and the communication books. So like in day-to-day life, how we are using different modes of communication, using AAC also same thing can be achieved. There is in the next picture a child using the voice output communication system, which is, I said, is a high technology system, and the advantage in this is it gives a speech output. Of course it can be in some system natural speech, or in some system, or most of these voice output dedicated systems, it is a synthesized speech.
Like Mrs. Dalvi, you were telling us about AAC. Suppose somebody wants to know about AAC or they want to learn about that. So who are the people and who are the team member who can help these people to use AAC and assess them, and what kind of AAC required for a particular person?
So usually when we know these children have communication, expressive communication problem, and the professional who can help them is, they can be referred to speech and language therapist or any AAC specialist who have experience and knowledge about the AAC system, so that they can use that, prescribe the system, appropriate system, to maximize their communication skills. So here it is not just done by, say, speech language pathologist or AAC specialist, but it has to be a team effort, because giving a system, I said, it is not only the symbol. Yes, symbol is there, then the children may have certain physical concerns or motor disability or cognitive. So we have to see how are they going to use that board or indicate whatever they want to communicate, what are their abilities, and how are they going to carry that system. So all these, with the team members, we can work together and give the best system so that the child can use it maximally and has a good experience of active participation. So the team members can be, the first and foremost is the person who uses AAC. It is not the professional who gives the system, it is also the child. Depending on his need and wants, we have to do that. So the first and foremost is the person who uses AAC, then the doctor who can tell us what are his medical status, whether he needs certain medications and all, parents and caregiver, because they are with them and they have to be the equal partner in our attempts, family members, peers, because their brothers, sisters also should interact with the child as it happens in the natural situation, educators, speech pathologists, occupational and physiotherapists who can help them in giving better posture, better access, and rehabilitation engineer. So these are some of the team members who will have to be involved in this.
जैसे मैडम ये इंटरनेशनल लेवल पर भी अल्टरनेटिव एंड ऑगमेंटेटिव कम्युनिकेशन के लिए काफ़ी प्रयास किए गए हैं और ISAAC जो है उसके बारे में मिसेस सुधा कौल आप थोड़ा बताएंगे क्या है ये और किस तरह से क्या फंक्शन है इसका?
जी 1983 में USA में एक संस्था स्थापित हुई थी, उसका नाम है इंटरनेशनल सोसाइटी फॉर ऑगमेंटेटिव एंड ऑल्टरनेट कम्युनिकेशन। अब उसका हेडक्वार्टर्स कनाडा टोरंटो में है। ये एक इंटरनेशनल बॉडी है जिसने वेरी रिसेंटली UN कंसल्टेटिव स्टेटस पाया है। इट इज़ द लार्जेस्ट एंड द ओनली इंटरनेशनल बॉडी which actually is focusing on problems associated with communication disorders. And in India, we are very fortunate and very privileged to be active members of the team. We are very shortly going to be forming ISAC India chapter as well.
And Mrs. Paul, which are the organizations that are using AAC in India?
In India, the premier organizations who are actually focusing on training as well as on augmenting this whole AAC system. At the Indian Institute of Cerebral Palsy in Calcutta, a National Resource Center for AAC has recently been set up. The Ali Awar Jung National Institute for Hearing Handicapped in Mumbai. We have Vidyasagar and Spaston in Chennai, Adi in New Delhi. But besides these, there are many other small organizations, primarily those who are dealing with children and adults with cerebral palsy, are all showing a great interest and a great need to augment this entire system.
And how can an individual access their communication system?
As we've been talking that many people who have communication disorders can have multiple disability. People with cerebral palsy, as you know, also have a physical problem. So although we may provide a communication system, they may have problem in just accessing the system. By access, we mean using it. Generally, we would access the system by pointing. But if they have a physical problem, we have to take into consideration other physical aspects. Therefore, as Usha said, a team approach is very important. We need to involve the therapist in this process so that we can think of proper seating, proper furniture for a person with cerebral palsy to make sure that they can actually access their system. If they're not able to use their hands, there are other ways of doing it. You can use what we call eye gaze, eye pointing. You can use any part of your body where you have full control. And of course, there are many very high-tech methods of accessing as well, which currently are not available in our country.
Yeah, ma'am, like you were telling us that there is a National Resource Center for AAC. Can you tell us something more about the center?
The center, as I mentioned, has recently been set up, and we have written to all our associates in the country who are working on AAC. Primarily, we wish it to be a resource information center of all the activities that are happening in the country. IIT Kharagpur and IIT Chennai and Delhi has been playing quite an active role in supporting many of our institutes in developing technology. So we hope that shortly we will have information not only for low-tech but also high-tech aids that have been made in the country. I'd like to show you some slides which show you different types of adaptations that we have used or can use for accessing. For example, in this slide you see a young man who only has control over his foot, and he is using the computer using his foot, and he's using, which you see on the right hand side, access mouse which is called a roller ball mouse, through which he can use the computer. In the next slide we show another young man who is using two switches to actually operate the computer. He can also use eye gaze to do this. Besides switches, there are many other forms of technology that can help people using AAC. In normal computer terminology, the word software technology is very well understood. But for us in the field of AAC, software technology is crucial, because by and through software technology we can actually access any system that is available. We at the National Institute Resource Center and IICP have developed a software called the Indian Picture Symbols for Communication. We have been talking about picture symbols, using picture symbols. We need to have symbols that are linguistically and culturally appropriate for our Indian population, and that is what we have developed. The high technology aids that we have developed with IIT Kharagpur and Webble in Calcutta, it's called Gupshup and Kathamala. This is a pre-programmed device. The Kathamala is now available, and it has 16 pre-programmed messages. And as Usha said earlier, the voice device has actually a great benefit, because you are then using voice, which is the commonly understood mode of communication. And this is now readily available in Calcutta and would be of great benefit to everybody, because it can be, you can tape any language, your language, in the device. So it is really linguistically very appropriate all throughout India, really. Few of the following slides show pictures of children using these vokas. Vokas can be used for school activities, but in the next slide, as you can see, vokas can also be used for serious work. As you know, that advocacy and rights for people with disability is an issue which is well accepted and acknowledged in our country. And on the right hand slide you see two youngsters who have actually used the voca to carry on an advocacy awareness program in a slum community. So the voca Kathamala has a very, very wide application.
And मिसेस कॉल, क्या हमारे पास कोई और सॉफ्टवेयर भी है जिसका यूज़ करके हम कम्युनिकेट कर सकते हैं?
जी हाँ, IIT खड़गपुर के साथ अभी एक सॉफ्टवेयर डेवलप हुआ है जिसका नाम है संजोग. What is exciting about this development is that in all the research that we are carrying on in the National Resource Center, people who use AAC are primary research assistants, because we want to ensure that the technology that we are developing is really useful for the users. So Sanjog is one such software. The other one is another software called Multimedia Software System for Education. This is an auto-generated program learning. It can be both in currently it's in Hindi and Bengali, but can be done in any other Indian language. It again has a synthesized speech output and a hardware interface with indigenous switches which can facilitate access for using this. Besides this, at the National Resource Center, we have also produced a lot of training materials which have been produced by the Indian Institute of Cerebral Palsy, because we are aware that although technology is crucial and important, many of our population do not have access to computers. So it is important for us to have teaching material in all languages available for people who are working in our villages and our larger communities. Again, as I said earlier, it's very important for us to produce symbols which are understood and by a very large population. Often a question is raised that can people who are non-literate, can they actually use the system? If you look at the pictures here, they talk for themselves. You have a picture of a pataka there, उसको देख के सब समझ सकते हैं कि this is a pataka which through which a child can indicate कि दिवाली आई थी मैंने पटाखे जलाए. So इस तरह से it's very easy and simple for even those people who are non-literate, who may have literacy problems, they too can use an AAC system. For people who are literate, AAC actually augments teaching of language. And in this slide, we just show you a young man who is now on a literacy program and actually has a Hindi communication board. It's not very clear on the monitor, but it has all the matras that we use in our spoken language. And through this system, not only is the student learning how to speak through his AAC system, to communicate through his AAC system, but he's also learning literacy and language.
Yeah. Thank you, madam. Mrs. Dalvi, is the like Mrs. Call is telling us about AAC and you were telling us about the system. So, is the system adequate or do we need some other methods also for
See,
better communication?
other methods, like we said, like it is a multimodal, so it is not just using the communication board, but whatever are the strength of the child, we have to utilize. If the child can use eye gaze, if the child can use certain bodily gestures, we can use along with that. And we have to remember that just giving the AAC system is not enough. Apart from giving this AAC system, what we have to take care is whatever system one has given to the child or planned for the child, so whether it is suitable and whether it is suitable for which context, situation, and all. So the system, we have to remember for what purpose it is, then who is going to maintain it. Sometimes when we say voice output communication system, yes, it needs lot of maintenance, and even the low technology like communication board, it also needs maintenance. It is not that just once made that board is enough, because with use, wear and tear, again it has to be maintained. There has to be further boards developed, because just that one communication board is not sufficient. As the child grows, there is an increase in his vocabulary, language, and as he is learning new structures, we have to incorporate all that. So we have to go on changing periodically depending on the need of the child. And then we also have to see who are going to train this child. So training in the classroom, just giving board, and if the child doesn't know, or the teacher doesn't know, or the clinician doesn't know how the child is going to use this, again it is a failure. So here we have to train all the team members, whoever is involved with the child when the child is using the communication board, so that they know how the child is using it and how they can interact using that communication board. And if there are certain repairs, we have to definitely have a database which says, okay, if we have certain systems, say software systems, hardware systems, modified keyboards, modified switches, like where this repairs can be carried out. So all these needs to be taken care of when we are thinking of providing either a low technology device system or a high technology system device. Okay.
ये मिसेस सुधा कौल और मिसेस उषा दलवी हमें बता रहे थे कि ऑगमेंटेटिव डिवाइसेस का इस्तेमाल किस तरह से किया जा सकता है और इसके लिए इंडिया में कौन कौन से ऑर्गेनाइजेशन हैं जो इनको इस्तेमाल कर रहे हैं. इसके अलावा उन्होंने ये भी बताया कि IICP कोलकाता में नेशनल रिसोर्स सेंटर फॉर AAC डेवलप किया है और उन्होंने IIT खड़गपुर, दिल्ली और अन्य लोगों की मदद से कुछ इस तरह के कम्युनिकेटिव डिवाइसेस डेवलप किए हैं जो इस तरह के कम्युनिकेशन में मदद कर सकते हैं. इन डिवाइसेस की मदद से एक डिसेबल्ड बच्चा जो कम्युनिकेट नहीं कर पा रहा है या एक एडल्ट अपने आप को कम्युनिकेट कर सकता है, अपने आप को एक्सप्रेस कर सकता है और उसको वो डे टू डे लाइफ में भी इस्तेमाल कर सकता है. इसके अलावा अगर उन्हें भाषा सीखनी है उसमें भी इस्तेमाल किया जा सकता है. और AAC में भी दो तरह की डिवाइसेस आपने बताया कि कुछ हैं जो हाई टेक्नोलॉजी हैं और कुछ हैं लो टेक्नोलॉजी हैं. हाई टेक्नोलॉजी में सॉफ्टवेयर का इस्तेमाल करके, कंप्यूटर की मदद से उन्होंने कुछ डिवाइसेस इस्तेमाल की हैं जिसमें प्री रिकॉर्डेड मैसेजेस भी होते हैं जिनकी मदद से इसको किया जा सकता है। इसके अलावा लो टेक्नोलॉजी डिवाइसेस भी हैं जिनमें तस्वीरों की मदद से, साइंस या सिंबल्स की मदद से कम्युनिकेट किया जा सकता है। इसके अलावा आपने ये भी बताया कि ये जो कम्युनिकेशन है इसके लिए ये ज़रूरी नहीं है कि जो इसको इस्तेमाल कर रहा है वो पढ़ा लिखा इंसान ही हो, वो लिटरेट होना उसका ज़रूरी है, क्योंकि साइंस और सिंबल्स जो हैं वो उस तरह की चीज़ है जो कोई इलिटरेट व्यक्ति भी इस्तेमाल कर सकता है। और मिसेस कॉल ने हमें अभी दिखाया भी था कि किस तरह से अगर दिवाली का सीन बनाया जाए तो बच्चा समझ सकता है कि ये दिवाली है या ये पटाखा है या ये पुजारी है, या मंदिर का सीन बनाया जाए तो वो उसको समझ सकता है और उसकी मदद से वो कम्युनिकेट कर सकता है और उसके साथ रिलेट भी कर सकता है। अब हम ये जानते हैं कि AAC हमारे पास एक रिसोर्स अवेलेबल है, या AAC एक साधन है जिसकी मदद से हम कम्युनिकेट कर सकते हैं, और इसको कम्युनिकेट करने के लिए ज़रूरी है कि एक टीम हो जिसमें जैसे मिसेस दलवी हमें बता रही थी कि डिफरेंट एक्सपर्ट्स हैं, जिसमें डिफरेंट एक्सपर्ट्स के अलावा पेरेंट्स हैं, पीयर्स हैं, और जो इसको इस्तेमाल कर रहा है वो भी उस टीम का एक मेंबर होता है। इसके अलावा उसको रिपेयर करने के लिए लोग भी चाहिए, रिहैब इंजीनियर भी चाहिए। इस सभी टीम की मदद से AAC को इस्तेमाल करके कम्युनिकेशन को बेहतर बनाया जा सकता है। अब सवाल ये उठता है कि जब हम AAC को इस्तेमाल करते हैं, या जो लोग इसको इस्तेमाल कर रहे हैं, जो संस्थाएं इनका प्रयोग कर रही हैं, उनके सामने क्या कुछ चैलेंजेस भी हैं। तो आइए जानते हैं मिसेस उषा दलवी से कि क्या चैलेंजेस हैं इसको इस्तेमाल करने में। मिसेस दलवी।
Yes, at present for the professional in India there are a lot of challenges, especially with reference to AAC. First and foremost is the attitude. You know, we are saying AAC has to be used. It is a good way of communicating. It gives a immediate, means of communicating to the individual, whether it is a young child or a older child. But the attitude is our society mainly focuses on only speech, or they expect the child or the individual to speak. But speech is just a medium through which we are communicating. So, in such children where there is expressive disorders, what we have to focus is how are we going to give them effective means of communication. So, our attitude has to change, cannot just focus on speech, but also when it is not possible and as early as possible, we can give them certain means of communication. So, attitude is a big challenge for not only the professionals but also for the parents, for the individuals. So everybody's attitude needs to be changed or modified, because that is very very important if one has to accept this AAC. And then there is competency. The professionals who are using should have the competency and also the knowledge of different systems which are available and different types of symbols which can be used. So that becomes very important, because sometimes we just know, okay, this is the board, but then we do not have enough information or knowledge, okay, how it is, from where it is, has to be accessed, who all can be needed to have to provide a effective system. And then involvement in the training. So involvement in the training, it is not just the professional, okay, as a professional I have just given the system and the child has to use it, but it is the team, especially the child, the parents, or if the child is using in the school, the teacher and the professional. So it has to be involvement of all the people, whoever is significantly involved with the child, and also involvement in the training. It is not that today I have taught and then I say after 1 week the child has to use it. So it needs a intensive training in the beginning, because when we say the child is having, or an individual is having severe expressive disorder, we have to find out what are their uh, capabilities, and those capabilities we have to encash and then see how it can be used for communicative purpose. So involvement in training is also a very important factor. Then part of the team, as we have been earlier also mentioned, so part of the team, every team member has to holistically view. It is not that I have just finished my job and I have said okay, so and so has to carry out, but there has to be a always interaction or communication between all the professionals, so that whatever system we have given is maximally used and effectively used. And structure of educational service, like now we are having Sarva Siksha Abhiyan. So if this child is going to a regular school or he is mainstream, then we also have to take care, like earlier Dr. Kaul told us that they have to be given proper seating, they have to be given proper access and all. So if the child is integrated in the mainstream, we have to provide all these things so that it is effective for the child. So these are some of the challenges which we are facing today.
May I just add to what Usha ji said? I think again one of the challenges that we are facing is that we need to have a lot more interaction with people in the technology sector, because people in the technology sector actually have the know-how. We just need to link up their technological know-how to developing communication devices. इतने सालों में हमने सिर्फ 2 वोकास प्रोड्यूस करे हैं, which are still quite expensive, and I think if more and more technological input is given, we can move forward much more quicker.
उषा जी हमें बता रही थी कि एएसी के इस्तेमाल में किस तरह के चैलेंजेस आ रहे हैं। जैसा इन्होंने बताया कि जो डिवाइसेस अवेलेबल हैं उनका इस्तेमाल करना आना एक चीज़ है, दूसरा है कि उसमें इन्वॉल्वमेंट एक प्रोफेशनल कितना करता है, उसको कितने अच्छी तरह से जानता है। इसके अलावा ट्रेनिंग ये नहीं है कि एक बार ट्रेनिंग देकर बच्चे को बस सिखा दिया, क्योंकि इसमें ये ज़रूरी है कि एक इनोवेशन भी किया जाए और जो उसको बताया जा रहा है डे टू डे बेसिस पे उसको भी एक इन्वॉल्वमेंट टीचर का अगर रहता है तभी कम्युनिकेट करने वाला अच्छे तरीके से सीख सकता है। और इसके अलावा एक जो बहुत इम्पॉर्टेंट बात उन्होंने कही कि एजुकेशनल सर्विसेज का एक हिस्सा होना ज़रूरी है एएसी का। जैसे आज हम बात कर रहे हैं सर्व शिक्षा अभियान की, हम कहते हैं 0 रिजेक्शन पॉलिसी है, हर बच्चे को ये राइट है कि वो एक मेन स्ट्रीम स्कूल में जाकर पढ़ सके। तो उस मेन स्ट्रीम स्कूल में अगर उस तरह का बच्चा जा रहा है जिसको कम्युनिकेशन प्रॉब्लम है और वो एएसी यूज़ कर रहा है, तो उसको यूज़ करने के लिए जो प्रॉपर जो चीज़ें हैं, जो सीटिंग अरेंजमेंट है और जो भी इक्विपमेंट्स या जो भी चीज़ें उसको चाहिए, उन सब चीज़ों का होना बहुत ज़रूरी है। और एक जो बहुत इम्पॉर्टेंट बात डॉक्टर कौल ने कहा वो ये है कि जो टेक्नोलॉजी का नो हाउ जिनके पास है, जो लोग टेक्नोलॉजी को जानते हैं, उन लोगों का इन्वॉल्वमेंट और डिसेबिलिटी सेक्टर के साथ जो एक लिंकअप होना है वो एक बहुत ज़रूरी बात है। आज जैसे हम लोग कहते हैं कि कंप्यूटर एज है या जेट एज है या मोबाइल फ़ोन, अगर आप देखेंगे कि मार्केट में बहुत सारी कंपनियां आ रही हैं, बहुत तरह के मोबाइल फ़ोन्स आ रहे हैं और उनके डिफरेंट इस्तेमाल हैं। क्योंकि मोबाइल के यूज़र्स हैं, ज़्यादा यूज़र्स हैं, उनको दिखाई देता है कि इसकी मार्केटेबिलिटी है तो वो उस तरह की चीज़ों को बना रहे हैं। लेकिन अगर हम बात करते हैं कि एएसी की बात जब तक आ रही है, जैसे मैडम कह रही थी कि सिर्फ 2 कंपनीज़ हैं, 2 तरह की चीज़ें हमारे पास अवेलेबल हैं। अगर इस तरह के लोग जो इस क्षेत्र में ज़्यादा आते हैं तो शायद हमारे डिसेबिलिटी सेक्टर को भी फ़ायदा होगा और जो डिसेबल लोग हैं वो भी एक प्रोडक्टिव मेंबर बन सकेंगे समाज का। हमारे पास चेन्नई से एक कॉल है जी। हेलो
Hello.
यस
Hello.
हेलो
I'm
यस
calling up
प्लीज
from Chennai Safton.
प्लीज आस्क योर क्वेश्चन। हेलो 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 चेन्नई। I think there's some technical problem. हमारे पास चेन्नई से एक कॉल था एंड टेक्निकल वजह से हम उसे नहीं ले पा रहे हैं। एंड हम जैसा अभी बात चर्चा जो हम कर रहे थे कि चैलेंजेस हमारे सामने जो हैं अब ये एक बहुत इम्पॉर्टेंट सी बात है कि हमारे पास ये इस तरह के साधन हो, एएसी ज़्यादा हो, ज़्यादा डिसेबल लोग जो उनको प्रॉपर तरीके से इस्तेमाल कर सकें, और इस तरह के जो मैन्युफैक्चरर्स हैं वो भी आगे आएँ इसमें। और उसके लिए एक कोऑर्डिनेशन और हेल्प की ज़रूरत है। जो डिसेबिलिटी सेक्टर में लोग इसके लिए तैयार हैं, लेकिन हमें ज़रूरत है कि हमारे पास इस तरह के लोग आए जिनके पास टेक्नोलॉजिकल नो हाउस है। Now I would request Dr. Kaul to tell us why is AAC so important.
As we've been discussing, we have, I think, are all agreeable that communication is important for all of us. Why do we communicate? Because we need to meet our functional needs. All of us do that. Why else do we communicate? Because we need to meet our social needs. Through communication, we can actually socially participate in our daily activities. In the same way, through social participation, we can reduce our barriers. For a very long time, the disability sector has been saying that they, and quite rightly so, that it is their right to participate in not only their day to day activities but in community life, in the country's life. So, therefore, communication is an extremely important tool through which they can actually socially participate. The way they can do, people who have communication difficulties, the way they can do it is through the madhyam of AAC. And therefore, AAC is absolutely crucial for those people who have communication needs.
मैडम, जो हम बात करते हैं, ये कहा जाता है कि जैसे एक छोटा बच्चा है, अगर उसको 2 साल का बच्चा है और उसको कम्युनिकेशन में प्रॉब्लम है, तो क्या उसके लिए इंतज़ार करने की ज़रूरत है कि हम वेट करें कि बच्चा थोड़ा बड़ा हो जाए और वो तब उस कम्युनिकेशन उसको सिखाया जाए, या एएसी का इस्तेमाल करना सिखाया जाए, या 2 साल के बच्चे को ही हम इसे सिखाएं?
आपने एक बहुत ही अच्छा प्रश्न पूछा, क्योंकि बहुत बार होता है कि जब छोटे बच्चे डॉक्टर के पास जाते हैं तो डॉक्टर कभी कहते हैं कि अभी आप रुक जाइए, बच्चा छोटा है। लेकिन अगर आप नॉर्मल डेवलपिंग बच्चे को देखिए, बच्चा बचपन से ही बात करना शुरू करता है। लिटिल बेबीज, हाउ डू दे कम्युनिकेट? दे कम्युनिकेट थ्रू वोकलाइजिंग, थ्रू क्राइंग, थ्रू बॉडी लैंग्वेज. And therefore, because communication is such an early natural process, we must not wait. We must introduce a system so that our children, our young babies who have communication problems, who may be potentially needing a communication device later, we need to start an AAC system as soon as possible. Again, I think that a question which is often asked, which I'm sure Usha would like to answer, particularly question put up to speech therapists, is that if we use an AAC system, will the child stop speaking?
Yes, a very good question. Earlier, there was a belief that once you use an alternate or augmented system, the child will not learn to speak. But now, even the research findings have showed that while using those AAC system, many of the children, they have started speaking. In fact, that has facilitated speech also. Again, it is not that all of them would do, but yes, wherever, like Dr. Kaul said, okay, whenever there is a potential in a child, definitely the child picks up, and the professional also has to take care. Okay, once I have given the communication system, it doesn't mean I am just using that augmented system or the alternate system, but also should encourage the child to use speech. So definitely these systems doesn't mean that once you provide them, they are not going to speak. In many of the, like I said, research findings, they have been used with autistic children, they have been used with children with cerebral palsy, and these children have developed speech. Even adults with traumatic brain injury, aphasics. So initially we provide these systems, and like I said in the beginning, periodically it has to be updated. So as there is a progress, depending on the progress of the individual, we'll have to modify all these systems. But yes, it does not hamper development of speech.
जो सवाल हमारे पास है वो ये है कि एएसी क्या उन लोगों के लिए भी इस्तेमाल किया जाता है जो लेटर स्टेज में जिनको डिसेबिलिटी होती है किसी एक्सीडेंट या किसी ट्रॉमा की वजह से अगर होता है, तो क्या एएसी उस वक्त भी हेल्पफुल होता है?
जी, बहुत ही हेल्पफुल होता है, क्योंकि व्हेन वी आर सेइंग एक्सीडेंट, से इन अ वेरी यंग चाइल्ड, ओके, ही हैज़ नॉट डेवलप स्पीच और डेवलप स्पीच विच एवर स्टेज इट इज़, और अडल्ट भी है अभी तो इन इंडिया ऑल्सो देर आर larger incidents of road accidents and all, and there is a traumatic brain injury. So these individuals, they lose speech, and sometimes they recover from coma, still they are not able to speak. There are other individuals, due to paralysis cannot speak. So what happens, like while I was showing you the slide, okay, immediately if we provide a system depending on what is that the individual needs to require, then at that stage if it is given, what happens is their frustration level is reduced, they are able to communicate, and that also motivates them. And this again, like I said, it may facilitate their speech, because it is not that they have to learn speech from the beginning. They had speech, they lost it due to accident, and again by using these systems and also speech stimulation, they do regain speech. So we can use this AAC system in adults also who have later on acquired the speech problem.
एक
सॉरी, मैं कुछ ऐड करना चाहती थी. हम एएसी के बारे में बात कर रहे हैं. जैसे उषा ने कहा कि देयर मैनी पीपल हु बिकॉज वी स्टार्ट डूइंग एएसी विद देम, दे आर एबल टू एक्चुअली enhance their speech. अगर आप ये टर्म देखें, ऑगमेंटेटिव ऑल्टरनेट कम्युनिकेशन, पहला शब्द है ऑगमेंट, ऑगमेंट करना, बढ़ावा देना. So that is our primary reason for actually starting an AAC system, that if the individual concerned has the capability of actually enhancing speech at a later stage, that's step one. However, if they are unable to do so because of their condition, then we provide an alternate system. That is how the term AAC has actually been derived at.
एक जो ज़्यादातर फैमिलीज़ में कुछ एक सवाल आता है, ख़ास तौर से जब सेरिब्रल पाल्सी वाले बच्चे होते हैं. एक फैमिली है जिसमें 2 बच्चे हैं, दोनों सीपी चाइल्ड है और उनको ये कम्युनिकेशन प्रॉब्लम है. तो वहाँ से उस वक़्त ये आता है कि हम लोग इतने बिज़ी हैं, बच्चे की मदर जो है दोनों बच्चों को ठीक से देख पाना, उसकी देखभाल कर पाना, वही उसके लिए मुश्किल है. ऐसे में कम्युनिकेशन बोर्ड का इस्तेमाल करना, और घर में हम उसको किस तरह से कर सकते हैं, या जो सेंटर है वो बहुत दूर है, तो ऐसे लोगों के लिए क्या ऑप्शन हो सकता है या क्या किया जाना चाहिए ऐसे लोगों के लिए?
देखिए, बहुत ज़रूरी है कि जब भी हम कोई भी इंटरवेंशन प्रोग्राम सजेस्ट करें, हम फैमिली को इन्वॉल्व करें. हम सब जानते हैं कि जब पेरेंट कहते हैं कि हमारे पास समय नहीं है, और जैसे आपने कहा फैमिली विद 2 चिल्ड्रन, सचमुच समय नहीं होगा. Therefore, we need to work with the family to create a program where they can actually give opportunities for their children to participate in their daily activities. Uske liye there are many ways of doing it, and there are many parent training programs that all the centers that I mentioned to you have been running. We need to find out simple ways and means through which a parent can provide an opportunity during, for example, meal time. खाने खाने के वक्त, to give a child an opportunity to use an AAC system, you can have simple picture cards of all the, say, the food items that the parent may be giving the child. All the parent has to do instead of providing the food is tum kya khana kya khaoge, and the child can point to a little board saying dal ya chawal. It's a very small example of showing how a family can actually use an AAC system in a way which is not time consuming. As I mentioned, abhi samay nahi hai, that there are many parent training programs that we are all doing to support and help families and how they can use AAC in the home.
जैसे एक और मेरे पास सवाल है जिसमें ये है कि एक 7 साल का बच्चा है और वो तो कम्युनिकेशन करना वो सब कुछ समझता है, सब कुछ समझ सकता है, लेकिन उसके लिए ये एएसी सीखना क्यों ज़रूरी हो सकता है, जब वो पिक्चर सिस्टम खास तौर से क्या इम्पोर्टेंस है उसके लिए जो बच्चा समझ सकता है?
जैसे हमने कहा कि बच्चे जो कम्युनिकेशन का कोई समय नहीं होता. कम्युनिकेशन हम कहीं भी किसी के साथ कहीं भी कर सकते हैं. इसलिए ज़रूरी है कि जो हमारे 7 साल का बच्चा है उसको अपॉर्चुनिटी हम दें कि वो घर ही में नहीं कम्युनिकेट करे अपने पेरेंट के साथ, जो उसको अच्छी तरह पहचानते हैं, समझते हैं। अगर वो बच्चा कहीं बाहर जाए, देखिए सर्कस में जाए, बाज़ार में जाए और कुछ कहना चाहे तो वो कैसे करेगा? जब तक उसके पास कोई माध्यम ना हो, कोई सिस्टम ना हो जिसके द्वारा से वो कम्युनिकेट कर सके। आप कह सकती हैं कि पेरेंट्स साथ में है, कम्युनिकेट करने के लिए पेरेंट तो है, बच्चा क्यों करे? लेकिन हम सब का डिसेबिलिटी सेक्टर में, टीचिंग फील्ड में, व्हाट इज़ आवर एम? आवर एम इज़ दैट वी वांट टू मेक आवर चिल्ड्रन, आवर स्टूडेंट्स इंडिपेंडेंट, एंड कम्युनिकेशन is a wonderful way in which you can actually not only socially participate but be independent. Therefore, it is essential to provide children who may be at a picture level, may be getting on to literacy. It's absolutely essential to provide them the system as early as possible.
हम हमारा समय जो है वो थोड़ा समाप्त होने जा रहा है। मैम, मैं आपसे एक मैसेज चाहूँगी कि जो लोग एएसी इस्तेमाल कर रहे हैं उनके लिए आप क्या संदेश देना चाहेंगे?
I would just like to remind all of us that communication is really over a lifespan. As I said earlier, it's not for today, tomorrow, now, but over a lifespan. And therefore, as professionals, as people in the field of disability, as community people, as parents, family members, we need to create opportunities and provide adaptive strategies so that our people with severe communication problems can communicate, and this should be an essential component of any intervention program that we do. Why? Because AAC really is a means, a madhyam, a very strong madhyam through which people can participate. Communication, AAC may sound complex, but it's not. It's something we do all the time. As Usha mentioned, it's an attitude that needs to be changed, that we can communicate through a system which is non-speech, because everybody has the right to communicate.
थैंक यू। आज हमारे एक्सपर्ट्स ने हमें बहुत ही महत्वपूर्ण जानकारी दी, जो कि एक ऐसा क्षेत्र है जिसके बारे में बहुत कम संस्थाओं में इसका इस्तेमाल किया जा रहा है और बहुत ज़रूरत है इसके ऊपर, बहुत रिसर्च की भी ज़रूरत है, इसके इस्तेमाल की भी ज़रूरत है और इसके बारे में जानकारी लेने की भी ज़रूरत है। इस विषय में यदि आपको और जानकारी चाहिए तो आप डॉक्टर सुधा कौल से इंडियन इंस्टीट्यूट ऑफ सेरेब्रल पाल्सी में संपर्क कर सकते हैं। पता है डॉक्टर मिसेस सुधा कौल, वाइस चेयरपर्सन, इंडियन इंस्टीट्यूट ऑफ सेरेब्रल पाल्सी, P35/1, तारातल्ला रोड, कैलकाटा, 700088। फ़ोन 033-2401-3337 and 2401-3488। हमारे दूसरे एक्सपर्ट का पता है मिसेस उषा दलवी, AYJNIHH, KC मार्ग, बांद्रा रिक्लेमेशन, मुंबई 50। फ़ोन 264000215, एक्सटेंशन 309 and 310। हमारी अगली टेलीकॉन्फ्रेंस का विषय होगा ऑर्थोटिक मैनेजमेंट ऑफ स्पाइनल डिसऑर्डर्स। समय 2:30 से 3:30 तक रहेगा। इस विषय पर बातचीत करने के लिए हमारे साथ IPH दिल्ली और एम्स दिल्ली से एक्सपर्ट्स मौजूद रहेंगे। इसके अलावा जो हमारे NGOs हैं उनके लिए मैं एक स्पेशल अनाउंसमेंट करना चाहूँगी कि जो RCI इग्नू का जो पेरेंट्स प्रोग्राम है उसके लिए यदि और ऑर्गेनाइजेशन इंटरेस्टेड हैं, उसके लिए आप अपने एप्लीकेशन फॉर्म्स RCI को भेज सकते हैं। नेक्स्ट बैच 2 महीने बाद शुरू होगा, उस बैच के लिए आप अपने एप्लीकेशन अभी RCI में फॉरवर्ड कर सकते हैं। अंत में मैं अपने व्यूअर्स, एक्सपर्ट्स और अपने सहयोगियों को धन्यवाद देती हूँ। धन्यवाद।